Welcome to Work is Good, a CSM podcast. My name is Landon Buteau, and I host the show with my dad, Chris Buteau, the owner and president at CSM. Today's episode is a conversation I had with Josh Clemans over at New Founding, and I had heard about New Founding but didn't know a ton about what they were doing, and Josh provided an opportunity to hear about his story and hear about New Founding's story as well. And so just to give you a brief summary of what New Founding is, New Founding essentially wants to provide a rallying point in business, in various avenues of business, for conservative Christians to be able to live out their values, to live out their beliefs without being discriminated against for those beliefs. So I got to hear more about the specific opportunity that New Founding offers, and Josh will fill you in on the rest, so please enjoy today's episode. All right, Josh, appreciate you joining me today, and looking forward to our conversation here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we are here with Josh Clemans today at New Founding, and I'm going to let him just go ahead and take it away with an introduction to Josh, who you are, and a little bit of your career story, and then specifically where you're working right now, what New Founding is.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, so I'm Joshua Clemans, working for a company called New Founding, and New Founding itself it's a startup. We describe ourselves as a venture studio, largely looking to connect Christians and conservatives who are creating businesses, growing businesses, starting new businesses, looking for good talent. We're sort of the rally point, the connection between those folks who are looking to find each other and build new things. So that's our general mission. And then personally, I've been working on building out a business line at New Founding, which is our talent network. So I've been building that over the last 16 weeks or so, growing it from concept now up to a marketplace of companies and talent that are getting connected and plugged in with one another. So that's the current project, New Founding Talent Network. Previous to that, I was working at a large data software provider, doing also product work, building software products, selling to enterprise organizations. The big tech companies that you would know. And through that process and through previous roles, I did a lot of different things. I did, started off in some nice like character building sales work, doing, the cold emails and the cold calls. Got a chance to do marketing work, graphic design, UX, web development.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All over the place.
Yeah. And then finally product work. So yeah, so I've gotten to use every piece of the buffalo, kind of on the SaaS business, in the SaaS business space, and then now kind of spinning up new projects at New Founding.
Yeah, that's great. Where is your what kind of gets you excited in all of that? Where's your passion in all of that? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's bringing all of it together just in operating businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's it, is bringing it all together. I love the strategic aspect. So I love understanding what a market needs and what customer needs, like feeling out the product market fit, and then bringing all the pieces together that need to happen to make that product a reality, which is, not just the development, not just the marketing, not just the aesthetics and the design and the messaging, but all of those pieces combined.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel pretty similar. I don't feel, and part of that's because I don't know where I'm scaled right now, and so I kind of like doing a little bit of all of it and learning which direction is more interesting. But I do like bringing it all together into one strategic kind of mission and vision. So I get that. That's great. So help me understand the difference between what you're working on with the talent network and how that's different from New Founding. It might just be I need a more specific and clear picture of what both of them are.
Yeah. So the talent network is part of New Founding. It's one of our business lines. But yeah, I can back up and tell you a little bit more about New Founding as a company and a project. It was founded by Nate Fisher and Matt Peterson, are our two founders. Matt Peterson was one of the co-founders of the American Mind, and has many public appearances, and he's on Glenn Beck and speaking on political topics often, and has founded publications. And then Nate Fisher is our other co-founder. He actually got his start in the real estate space.
Okay.
So he's got a real unique knack for looking at the macro and understanding what the big trends are, and then going in and taking advantage of those. So, I think one of the books he said has had a big impact on him is Nassim Taleb's Early Corpus, Black Swan. Some of those of saying, what are the opportunities that have a tangible, limited downside and a asymmetric upside? So in around 2010 was when Nate started looking at real estate, and he saw that opportunity. It was the bottom, or near the bottom of the recession. And he and a partner raised money and then went and started purchasing distressed assets in Florida and Texas. And as we all know, since then, those that was a very smart thing to be in. And so
that's great.
So he worked with that organization and eventually sold it, and then has worked more in tech startups since then.
Okay.
But that's another the trend that he's seen is just a decay of trust across not just the tech space, but across the country of trust in institutions and platforms and technology that we use is just going down, 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 down. And there are two big things, two opportunities. One, to create more trusted systems and more trusted products to replace the current ecosystem. And two, for people who are conservatives and Christians, people who are maybe working in an environment where there's a lot of social activism, maybe in a big company, a lot of social activism. There are things being pushed that are like directly opposed to their values, and they're looking for different projects to work on with like-minded people. There's also an opportunity to be the rally point for those folks and give them a way to connect with other people who are looking to build the same sort of things.
Sure. Yeah, so that I guess that's where I'm a little unclear. What is the rallying point? What are you bringing to actually bring those people together? You have those people with that shared mission, that shared story. What is that thing that brings them together?
Yeah, good question. So one interesting aspect, I think this is something you guys are probably doing well with your project, is media is now such a critical piece of doing anything. And so media has been our first step into creating that rally point, because you need visibility. Once you have visibility and you have eyeballs on a project and on what you're doing, then you can rally those people to go execute. So so we have multiple publications that we started with in the early days as a commercial publication and a tech publication.
Okay.
And then by advertising through those and through on Twitter and other places, now we've attracted people who are actually interested in building companies and projects that we help grow. So, for instance, because we had established that reach, that media reach early, our founder Nate was able to go on Twitter and say, "Hey, I want to start a new based a WeWork style project in Dallas of conservative, like-minded folks." And because of the reach, he got all sorts of people who messaged him back and said, "Hey, we're interested in doing this. We'd like to be a part of it." And now there's funding for it. There's people who are looking to purchase buildings. So all the pieces came together because of that audience.
Okay. So you're primarily, and correct me, are you primarily serving businesses then?
Yeah. So primarily businesses. I think, at this point, it's Investors and founders would be one group. So investors who are looking for projects and founders who are looking to get funding for a new project.
Okay.
We're connecting those people. We're also connecting businesses and talent.
Okay.
We've got a lot of businesses that we work with who are hiring, and we're sending them new talent and placing people for them.
Okay.
And then the third aspect is just pre-existing businesses who need help with growth, or they need advising help, consulting. We've got some of those businesses in our accelerator program, and we're helping grow them and expand their business.
Okay. So kind of a consulting services and funding related services and networking services, kind of hodgepodge there. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then where is your talent network fitting into that?
Yeah, so the talent network was one of the first main pieces of that we established back in November, and said, hey, we're helping. It's something we had done a little bit organically before, of saying, hey, because of our position in the space, we're talking to a lot of companies and a lot of people, and those people and companies would come to us and say, hey, I'm looking for a good company to work for, or I'm looking for good people to hire. And so we were just doing that organically, connecting those people and getting them jobs and hires.
Because you ran with both parties.
Right. Just because we were in the weeds with those folks anyways. And then we started in November. It was when we actually created an actual system for it and made it an actual business to say, we can do this for a few people, one or two people a month if we're just doing it on the side. But if we make it an actual business, then we can do it for thousands of people.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's help me put it in a box here. Is it more job board or social network or a combination?
Yeah, I would call it more on the social network side, but the label I would give it is talent placement.
Okay.
So a job board, a company comes in and they rent space on a website, and they pay the website a regular amount to just put it on the billboard, put their job posting up, and they see what they get. We're a placement service, and so we get paid on a commission basis when the company makes a good hire. So a company will come to us and say, this is who we're looking for, and we'll go through our network, our talent pool and our extended network, and say, okay, we know 3 people who would be a really good fit for this role. And so we'll then give them personal introductions to the company and say, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, I think you should talk because of this. And then they'll interview those candidates, and then when they hire them, they'll pay a fee to New Founding for that hire.
Okay. So if I had a friend who was looking for a job, they would come to you and just get connected with you and be in your network, and then you would know when opportunities pop up for them and then make the connection there.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Great. Cool. Well, one thing we talked about before is, as part of what you guys are doing is you've been involved in and seen several recent startups, probably with just I would guess prompted by similar stories of, wanting to be able to be in an environment that they can actually live out their values and not have to live out and support values that are not their own. What have you seen? What are some stories that have come up? What are some of the companies that you've seen, and some of those recent startups?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, thinking about what has worked and what hasn't, and it's been fun to be part of New Founding because it is really just a course in how startups work and what works and what doesn't.
Is there a range of like industries that come to you, or is it anything and everything?
We consider anything and everything. It's primarily tech.
Okay.
primarily tech, but also, especially on the talent side, we service, finance, law, media.
Sure.
And that's obviously less of a startup space. Those are established companies we're helping out. But in terms of lessons learned, I think one is the power of media. We just touched on this a little bit, but the power of reach and the power of establishing an audience and having those people to go to. It's not just like having a following on something like Twitter is not just it's not just a media platform. That is actual economic value. Like building a following has economic value. For instance, if you built an email list, you could actually sell that email list. There's real economic value there.
Yeah.
And that's the media, and your following is your leverage to actually execute on a concept. So, which is very much backwards from a traditional mindset where you'd say, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to get the product, I'm going to build the business, and then I'm going to spin up a marketing department, and we're gonna market the thing. Whereas now you can really in a lot of ways do the opposite. If you're able to, if you have reach, you can create a business that will serve that audience. You can create the audience first, you can create the customer first, and then the product served to them. So, for instance, I saw a venture capital fund actually, where it originally was a guy who had a YouTube channel. And he had a YouTube channel about finance and about startups.
Yeah.
And he had a huge YouTube following. And because he had the following, he started to get deal flow of people sending him startup ideas. And then also investor flow of people wanting to invest in startups. So he then created his own fund and got investors, and then is investing in these startups. And so that's a really interesting way to go about it, which wouldn't have been the case 100 years ago, that you could start a media content machine and then have that turn into a capital allocation venture capital firm. Right. It would normally be the other way around.
Interesting.
So media is one big piece, and then the other one that has struck me is just speed of execution. I think that's something that applies everywhere, but especially in the world of startups, that's just a free advantage that you have over everyone else. Is there's nothing holding you back from going as fast as you possibly can. When I was working at larger companies, there's a lot more process, and those processes are good to have a stable, long-term company and growth. But all the processes add a little bit of time. And so if you are someone who's operating in a larger company, maybe you have to schedule a meeting with all three of these stakeholders, and you got to schedule that meeting 2 weeks out. And that meeting 2 weeks out is to talk about something that's 4 weeks out. And maybe people don't respond right away. They respond in a day. And all of those response times just stack and stack and stack to the point where you're on a committee that's planning things 9 months away. Versus as a startup, you have the chance to ideally be in the room with just a few other people, and everything, all the communication can happen right away and can happen instantly, and you can launch something in days or weeks that would take months if you had slower communication and slower execution.
It makes sense. And is there a balance there that you've seen in terms of decision making and planning? And obviously you hear the catchphrase, what is it? Good, perfect is the enemy of done, or good. Or I'm butchering that, but where is there an in between, or is it just in that world, in business, especially when you're trying new things, execution is the main, the highest valuable thing you can bring?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think so. There's the saying, you can't steer a parked car. And I think that applies here too, where once you're actually executing, then you have feedback and you can actually correct based on that. Versus if you were just to sit in a dark room with your brain and think it all the way out, it might never actually get to the execution stage. So yeah, I mean, I would lean towards the execution on that.
Yeah, makes sense. And one quick question back to your comment about media. What of those, where's the value there that you've seen? Is there a consistent trend of people having a real high quality like production value setup, and that's that they go heavily on that, or they're just Mr. Consistent, or what's a common value that you've seen between people that have built an audience successfully, especially as a startup where you're not you don't have a long customer list that you're just tracking?
Yeah, I think two things. One, and this gets actually back to the execution question, is getting things out right away, getting things out as fast as you can, shipping things as you'd say in the software space, has a huge impact. And I think for both for getting out content and media and just for making everyday decisions, if you actually stop and think about it, you know what the right thing to do is 99% of the time. Right then, like if you get a message from a client or someone asks you a question, 99% of the time you already know what needs to happen to follow up on that thing. It might be uncomfortable or it might be a difficult decision, and it might make you feel better to take a day to think about it or to wait to respond. But most of the time,
you know what it's going to be.
The vast majority of the time, you're not actually adding any value by waiting. So that's one piece. I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time it does not. So from the media perspective, being able to, when you have content that you want to get out there, to ship it right away and just get it out is important. And part of that is just getting over yourself as a person. If you're posting under a personal account or even as a business, and saying, hey, it's more important that people see this than that every single thing be absolutely flawless. And the counterpart to that, I think the ditch on the other side of the road, which if you're familiar with all the Gary V folks and the whole 100 pieces of content a day mentality, that's the other ditch of saying, I'm just gonna spin. It doesn't even matter what it is. I'm gonna take a picture of my shoes. I'm gonna take a picture of me drinking a glass of water at my desk, and it's just content. I'm throwing it out there. And the missing piece there is those people are forgetting to focus on what's good for my audience, like what's good for my customers and the people that
are you bringing value.
Yeah, you're bringing value.
And I would say I think there's probably a ditch on that side, even with the Gary V true ethic, but I would say he focuses heavily on, I think people miss that from him sometimes, is he's just saying pump it out, and you're gonna have to put a ton of time in because it needs to be valuable, But I think it's very easy to look at his stuff, and we've been there as a company. I've been there, looking at his stuff and saying, okay, I guess just whatever, we just got to get stuff out there. So and I think that's probably an area I need to address is, I think in terms of content itself, where we work at it, but I don't have really an eye for the production value side of things and the camera and all the details on that. So that's probably an area I can improve value in. So that's a helpful reminder for sure.
Yeah, I know. I think of George Gilder has a line He's got a book called Knowledge and Power, and he's got a line in there where he's describing what true capitalism or what a good economy is like, and he describes it as a competition in giving, which is, I think, a nice way to think about it.
Yeah.
And helpful even to think about in terms of content is
Right.
always being focused on what you're giving the audience with that piece of content.
Yeah, it's funny how a simple thing like that can frame it really well for you. Like, even just as you're saying that, that's just kind of a reset for me of, okay, it's pretty simple. Are we giving, and are we providing value for people? Yeah, it's great. Well, I'll let you wrap up. Our thesis, our title of the show is Work is Good, and we just like to enjoy other people's stories and hearing about their work, and the idea there is not just the products from work, not just the money that comes in, not just, but the toil itself is good. And so in closing, is there something that comes to mind for you of, where is the joy in your toil? How do you see that all come together in kind of your daily in the weeds? What gives you joy in your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it, is what we just talked about, is the fact that when we use our energy and we use our time to be going all day giving to others, that's glorifying to God. And on a larger level, by building businesses, we're creating the entire community and ecosystem that should exist. So that's part of it. And I think just the ability to work hard every day and to go sun up to sundown with a focus and a mission and building based on that is what we were created for. It's what we're made for. And so doing that is the right thing to do, and gives you joy to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks, Josh. Really enjoyed the conversation and appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, Landon.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for listening to Work is Good. If you enjoyed it, share it with someone else, leave a review, and listen next week.